It's exciting to be able to begin this discussion with you today about parenting. And I don't know whether you've tried parenting discussions before, whether you've been to seminars or read other parenting books. I just know when I've done that sometimes, it can be a little bit discouraging. They have titles like 10 Things to Raise Godly Kids. And when I go into a room like that or read a book like that, often I just walk out thinking, now I got 10 new ways that I'm actually failing as a parent, not succeeding as a parent. And that is, I promise you, the last thing that we want to do in our time together over these next few sessions. We want to really try to encourage you as a parent, and we want to together try to figure out ways to help you as a family win at home. And I know parenting can be really intimidating. I have two sons, they're 18 and 14 now. But I remember when they were younger, just being constantly amazed at how unprepared I was as a dad and as a parent. I remember one day in particular, my oldest son, Jordan, and I were driving down the road in the car together, just the two of us. He was about 5 years old. He was in kindergarten. And I think I had the radio on in the background. We weren't really talking about anything. He was in his booster seat in the back. And there was a talk radio station on. And he must have heard something on the radio. And out of the blue, he just looked at me through the rearview mirror and he goes, in his little, kindergarten voice, "Dad, what is sex?" And I froze. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. And I knew at some point as a dad, I was going to have that conversation with him. I just wasn't expecting to have that conversation with him in the car when he was 5 years old in kindergarten. And I had no idea as a father what to say. So I paused for a moment and I looked into the rearview mirror. I looked him in the eye and I said, "Son, I have no idea." And I just kind of left it at that. Now, that wasn't a good answer, and I did actually know what sex was, but I just didn't want to tell him that. I have told him since then. But it's just those awkward moments as a parent, isn't it? It's those awkward times where you're just not sure what to say or what to do. And I think all of us as parents have moments of inadequacy where we just feel like we're failing as a parent. And sometimes we get this idea that there's this perfect picture of family, maybe that our family is supposed to look a little bit like this family. You see the dad and his hair's perfect, and the mom and she looks beautiful, and the kids are so happy. And you start to scratch, though, beneath the surface of what looks like a perfect family, and you discover that maybe it's not quite so perfect. In fact, I'll be honest with you, this actually isn't a family. This is a stock family photo, and these people are just actors, and they were hired to pose for the shot. And yet you go to churches, in fact I pastored a church where we used an image very much like that to portray the idea of a perfect family. We want to move as far away from that as possible, because I think most of us look at our families and go, we're not perfect, we're far from perfect. We have so many struggles, we're not even sure that God could engage in our story. Well, where does that really leave us? Some people would say, well, see, what we need to do with the family today, because it's so messy, is we got to get back to a biblical concept of story. Well, let's go there. Let's try to figure that out. What is a biblical picture of family? Well, if you go back to the Old Testament, let's go right back to the very beginning, to the book of Genesis, and let's study Adam and Eve. I mean, there's the first family. What does it actually look like? Well, if you remember, they had two sons, Cain and Abel. And it didn't turn out particularly well because Cain killed Abel. So there's a biblical family. What other models of biblical family are there? Well, there's Noah. Noah's an incredible story because he was said to be a righteous man, and God saved him and his children. And you know the story about the ark, and they were on the ark for a year and then it finally settled down. And as soon as Noah gets out of the ark, what happens? He plants a vineyard. He drinks from the fruit of the vineyard. He gets drunk. He falls down drunk in his tent, and his son has to cover him up. That's family. What about Joseph? Joseph is a big story in the Bible, a major character in the Bible. Well, Joseph's brothers tried to kill him, but then they decided, no, we shouldn't kill him. They thought maybe it would be better just to sell him to some traders. And then they went back and they told his father that he was dead because they were jealous. Like, man. How about Joseph and Mary? I mean, there's Jesus' mom and dad. Well, you might remember that Joseph and Mary, there was that pregnancy before they got married, and then, God was involved in that, obviously. But then afterwards, When they took Jesus up to the temple, they lost him for 3 days, and it took 3 days for Mary to even realize that he was missing. That's it. Like, you start to really pry beneath the surface of what a biblical family is, and you realize there's a lot of brokenness. And when you search for a perfect picture of what a biblical family looks like in the Bible, you're actually not going to find this picture. The thing that excites me about God not holding up a perfect picture, but instead using broken people, is that I believe it gives our children a front row seat to the grace of God. If God really is inviting your family and my family into a bigger story that He's writing, our children get to see God at work in our lives. They get to see us struggle through the brokenness, to pray through the brokenness, to be honest about our shortcomings, and to point to a God of hope who really does love His people and who loves families. So that's what I'm excited about. And as you begin your discussion in a few minutes, I would love for you to consider how it is that God might intersect with your family just the way you are right now.